Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Friday. Today is November 1st, and it's day 392 since October 7th of last year, a day that changed history, particularly for Israelis, Jewish people in Israel and around the world. It also was a day that did not mark the beginning of conflicts and oppression for Palestinian people and between Israelis and Palestinians. I'm doing the update today a bit earlier. I have a medical procedure today. This update is mostly from things that have happened before midday today on November 1st in the Middle East. In the last 24 hours or so, Israeli airstrikes killed at least 3 people in Gaza. This was yesterday on Thursday. The strikes hit the only operational hospital in North Gaza, sparking a fire which destroyed essential medical supplies, according to a medic. I will need to find out how Ali Hospital is doing because I saw reports from the American Friends of the Episcopal Diocese just last week that they were rebuilding certain things. And so I know that they were not a fully functioning hospital. I don't know if they're referring to Al-Aqsa, so I'll have to do more research on that. Israel's deadly Tuesday strike on the residential building in northern Gaza targeted a spotter that was observing Israeli forces from the roof of the building, according to an Israeli official. And troops claimed that they did not know the building was being used as a shelter. This was where there was a death toll. It was one of the highest death tolls in weeks. 94 people killed in that strike earlier this week. Under pressure from Israeli political leadership, the defense forces in Israel are preventing residents from the north, Jabalia, from returning to their homes, despite the fact that the objectives of the operation that began earlier in October have been mostly achieved, according to IDF officials. The officials acknowledge that the general's plan has been implemented in, quote, certain parts. This was the general's plan initiated by the retired Major General Giora Eland, which calls for exerting heavy pressure on the population in North Gaza. It also called for the Gaza population in the north to be evacuated southward and for the complete cutting off of food from the north to be used as a mechanism of controlling that population. According to the plan, anyone who chooses to remain in North Gaza would be considered a Hamas operative, therefore a legitimate military target. So when I've said that it was the North was determined to be a hostile military zone, that's what I was referring to. And that meant that literally I've watched videos of people trying to leave their homes being shot, and then people trying to go and help that person and them being shot. It's just absolutely, absolutely, absolutely horrific. A senior Hamas official told the press that they reject a proposal for any temporary truce or ceasefire agreement, and they're insisting on a permanent ceasefire. Now, early on in October, and for really the vast majority of the first year, Hamas has always said they would only agree to releasing additional hostages if a permanent ceasefire was the end result. Mediators are expected to propose a temporary ceasefire of less than a month. The other condition for Hamas is the complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, which is not currently being considered at all. IDF Chief Halevi said, "We have not forgotten the hostages that are held captive by Hamas. We are working to return them. This is a war goal set by the IDF, or for the IDF by the political echelon. We're responsible for them. We must continue to act with urgency. We must hurry and return them home. It is our moral duty." I want you to listen carefully to what I'm about to share. The amount of aid entering Gaza in October, the entire enclave is at the lowest level since the start of the war. The amount of aid for the last month, October 2024, was the lowest that it has been in 13 months. Now, we heard about the letter that came from the United States that gave Israel 30 days to increase aid. I'm telling you, it has had absolutely no effect. Sure, it had effect in the news, and there was a meeting, and there's 50 trucks in Gaza, the lowest aid in 13 months. Everybody kept saying to me I was being negative. Everyone kept saying, I'm not an analyst. I mean, this is not, you know, and many lauded the US for making that claim. And I'm sorry, I'm calling bullshit. It was complete and utter bullshit. So where are we? That letter came out 2 weeks, and I'm sorry, I'm saying holy shit, like bullshit. It is a holy word when it is calling things like they are. So I'm sorry. I have to say that this letter came in mid-October. It was 2 to 3 weeks ago. We've heard absolutely nothing about it. So I'd love to be proven wrong. There's a week or two for those 30 days to be put into effect where military aid would be withheld if humanitarian assistance and aid was not increased. It is not increasing. Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry, Farhan bin Abdullah, said that Israel's assault on North Gaza is a form of genocide. It is feeding the cycle of violence, adding that it is his understanding the negotiations for a ceasefire have repeatedly collapsed due to Israeli demands. The death toll in Gaza is now 43,204 people. It was just a few days ago that it increased over 43,000. What has the world come to that we are allowing this to go on day after day after day? President Biden on Thursday discussed a new U.S. effort to broker ceasefires, not only in Gaza, but in Lebanon, with the Cypriot president. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. He played a key role in efforts to get aid into Gaza. This was that whole maritime corridor. I'd say there's no aid in Gaza, so don't talk to me about anyone playing a key role. The Jordanians have been quite significant. I've heard they've been one of the leaders at any of the aid that is getting in thus far. UNRWA would be the other example. The State Department failed to comply with its own swift investigation policies to respect hundreds of reports that Israel has used U.S.-supplied arms in attacks that caused unnecessary harm to civilians. Washington Post did an expose on that this week. The UN Security Council unanimously expressed grave concern over the legislation that's banning UNRWA, urging Israel to abide by its international legal obligations. So there's quite a bit of international conversation about that Knesset ruling this week. And the UN Secretary General warned Israel could be carrying out ethnic cleansing of Gaza by systematically displacing Palestinians. That's the language that we've been using at CMEP consistently, and also quoting the International Court of Justice saying it could be possible genocide. In Lebanon, Israeli attacks killed 45 people in the past 24 hours, bringing the total death in Lebanon to 2,865. That number is as of yesterday. Washington Post issued breaking news saying that Israel has damaged or destroyed 25%, nearly a quarter of the buildings in South Lebanon. More than 5,500 structures on the border villages, including 9 religious sites, have been demolished in controlled explosions, according to the Washington Post. The destruction has intensified. The ground invasion began on October 1st. This October 1st, 2024, and the devastation has doubled every 2 weeks. 7 people, 4 Thai workers and 3 Israeli citizens were killed by Hezbollah rocket fire on North Israel. Yesterday, Thursday, since the start of the war, 41 civilians have been killed by rocket fire from Lebanon. 41 civilians in Israel killed by rocket fire from Lebanon, including 6 foreign workers. There have continued to be rocket fire from Hezbollah towards Israel, 55 rockets fired yesterday. Israel has continued its attacks on Hezbollah and on other sites throughout Lebanon as well. The IDF said it killed a Hezbollah anti-tank missile commander. Lebanon's prime minister expressed hope that an Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire deal would be announced within days. The premise is a 60-day truce. Israeli strikes in eastern Baalbek killed 19 people yesterday. The attack came hours after the Israeli military issued evacuation orders covering the entire city and 2 neighborhood towns. Naim Qassem, he's the new leader of Hezbollah, Wednesday delivered his first remarks in a televised address. He said he was open to a ceasefire on suitable terms, but he emphasized their commitment to a path of war and also the cause of Palestinians in Gaza. A draft of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hezbollah was crafted by the U.S. It states that Israel may take military action if it identifies threats deep inside Lebanon, including weapons productions and storage. The draft also allows the Israeli Air Force to continue flying over Lebanese airspace. The Lebanese army would be the only armed body. This is in accordance with that UN resolution we've been talking about. Hezbollah would be disarmed. Apart from UNIFIL, that's that UN agency authorized to operate in Lebanese territory. The sides would have 60 days to implement. Hezbollah's Naim Qassem appeared to have given a green light, but it said that this would not lead to quick change on the ground. Netanyahu has said he thanked the US for their efforts. He made it clear the main point is not that this agreement is on paper, but Israel's ability and determination to enforce the agreement. And so that was actually, I'm sorry, Amos Hochstein and Brett McGurk met with Netanyahu, and the US said that Israel best not thwart the agreement. In terms of Israel and Iran, Israel's recent strike on Iran will be met with a definitive and painful response if it comes before the US presidential election. That was a remark by a White House spokesperson. Iran should not respond and retaliate, says the US. And finally, I mentioned in a recent update that we've not been hearing much about the college campuses. I'll give you more on that tomorrow, but Chuck Schumer is proposing some legislation to curb anti-Semitism on college campuses. And I wanted to give you some updates about what's happening at Cornell and Brown and some of the cases related to college students. So I'll do that tomorrow. May God go before us. Don't give up hope. In the name of Christ, amen.